When a leader, someone who's been around for a long time, gives their final address, it's rarely just off-the-cuff remarks, is it?
No, definitely not. There's usually tremendous weight behind it, a kind of summary.
Right, like lessons learned, maybe a roadmap for what comes next. I mean, think about JFK's inauguration speech, just over 1,300 words.
Tiny, really.
But so impactful, it really left its mark, asking for responsibility.
That really captures the power of a parting message, doesn't it? It sort of distills everything down to the essentials, the non-negotiables.
And that's exactly the context for our deep dive today, isn't it? We're looking at these, well, crucial farewell addresses from Joshua.
Yeah, the aging leader Joshua speaking to the Israelites, we find them in the book of Joshua, chapters 23 and 24 specifically.
Okay, so our sources point out he had this kind of two-part mission before he died. Chapter 24, that's more of a look back, right?
Exactly. It's a historical recap reminding them of all the ways God had been faithful, trying to push them towards a clear choice.
A choice for exclusive worship.
hmm But chapter 23, that's where the focus shifts. It's looking forward.
The map for the future, you called it.
Yeah, tracing that path for future success, laying out the really critical decisions Israel needed to make to, well, keep the blessings they'd just received.
So our mission today is to unpack those key elements, and we're starting with the absolute bedrock, God's faithfulness.
That's the starting point. You have to begin there.
Okay, let's dive into that. Chapter 21 has what the sources call the theological summary, maybe even the climax of the whole book.
It really is. It's like the closing argument for Yahweh's faithfulness to the covenant.
And the memory text they keep highlighting really drives it home. Not one word of all the good promises that the Lord had made to the house of Israel had failed, all came to pass.
Powerful statement. And what's fascinating linguistically is how the text hammers this home. If you just zero in on those three verses 43 to 45 of chapter 21,
Okay.
the Hebrew word kol, which means all, it's used 6 times.
6 times in just 3 verses.
6 times. It's deliberate. It's intense.
Wow. That's certainly making a point.
It's emphasizing that everything, the land settling down successfully, the victories, the rest they experienced, all of it, was purely and absolutely a gift from Yahweh.
So Israel couldn't claim any credit. Not smarter, not stronger.
None at all. It was the Lord who swore the oath to their ancestors, and it was the Lord who delivered, period.
So, okay, drawing the line to the bigger picture then. Israel's success, their very existence, it all points back to God's trustworthiness, a complete gift. But here's the question that jumps out at me if it's a 100% guaranteed gift, based just on God being reliable. Why does Joshua need to give this next speech in chapter 23? Where does our part, human responsibility come in?
That's the core theological tension, isn't it? And the sources actually give us a really helpful parallel. They link it to salvation today.
Okay.
The gift part is foundational, always. Spiritual success, just like that conquest, it's a free gift of God's grace. It's not a result of works so that no one may boast. That's straight from Ephesians.
All right, Ephesians 2. So God's track record, his proven loyalty in the past, that guarantees his future promises won't fail either. He's trustworthy. Full stop.
Exactly. But, and this is the crucial part, receiving the gift, living in the reality of that gift, requires a response from us.
Okay.
And that's where chapter 23 comes in. Joshua pivots. He moves from what God has done, the solid foundation, to what Israel must do now. That's the structure for the future.
Got it. So the foundation's secure, but you still have to maintain the house, right? Success isn't automatic going forward.
Never automatic. Joshua warns them very clearly, success is always linked to active, conscious obedience, following God's word.
And this brings in the spiritual nature of their struggle, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Joshua makes it plain. The task ahead isn't primarily military anymore. God fought the main battles for the conquest.
Right.
But the long haul, the ongoing struggle, it's spiritual. It's about staying obedient to the Torah, to God's revealed will. Victory now depends on constantly relying on God's help, not their own strength or strategy.
That's a really critical distinction, and it makes me think there's a powerful parallel for our own lives today, isn't there?
For sure.
Like spiritual victory over sin is secured by Christ's work. That's the gift.
Yeah.
But actually living a victorious life day to day requires that moment-by-moment reliance on the Holy Spirit's help.
Constant attachment. It's not about our strength, but staying connected to His.
And for Israel, that attachment meant setting some really clear boundaries. Joshua gets quite strong, almost urgent, warning them about getting tangled up with the surrounding nations.
Very urgent. And here's where the detail in the sources is really key. The main threat wasn't necessarily another war, like military aggression from the people still left in the land.
Okay, so what was it then?
The real sneaky danger was friendship. Friendship leading to ideological corruption, losing their distinctiveness.
Ah, the subtle drift.
Exactly. It's the counter-values, the slow assimilation that just drains spiritual life. The sources really stress this. The specific prohibitions don't even mention the names of foreign gods. Don't swear by them. Don't serve them. It was all about stopping idolatry cold.
Maintaining their unique identity, keeping that covenant boundary clear.
It was about purity, spiritual purity.
And we see what happens when that boundary gets breached later on, don't we? The sources bring up King Solomon as, well, a tragic example.
The perfect cautionary tale. Solomon starts out incredibly wise, devoted. But his downfall, his spiritual collapse, it's tied directly to intermarriage and getting involved with foreign nations. He started by making alliances through marriage, trying to secure peace.
Seems pragmatic, maybe.
Perhaps, but First Kings shows us the end result. Those foreign wives turned his heart away, and later in life, he's building temples to their gods. It's a shocking reversal.
Which raises a complex point the sources touch on the New Testament view. Paul warns about being unequally yoked, right?
Yes, 2 Corinthians 6.
But then you have instructions for existing mixed marriages, like in 1 Corinthians 7, where he doesn't advise divorce. How does that square with Joshua's strict warning?
That's a great question, and it highlights the difference between the specific national covenant boundary for Israel in Joshua's time and the broader spiritual principle in the New Testament.
Right.
Joshua's warning was about national survival and mission ideological corruption would destroy them as God's covenant people with a specific land and task. The New Testament maintains the principle of seeking spiritual harmony, absolutely. But for marriages already formed between a believer and unbeliever, Paul's advice focuses on the believer living faithfully within that marriage, being a positive influence.
So it's less about dissolving the family unit and more about maintaining personal spiritual integrity and witness within it.
Precisely. The New Testament boundary is about personal purity and influence, not necessarily a mandated separation in every existing case, like the one facing the nation entering Canaan.
It's like the difference between drawing a clear line you shouldn't cross in the first place versus figuring out how to live faithfully when that line's already been blurred in your personal life.
Exactly right. The underlying goal in both is maintaining allegiance to God.
Okay, so allegiance is key. But what happens if Israel fails to maintain that allegiance? This leads us into, well, maybe the toughest part of Joshua's speech.
Yes, the warnings.
He says, just as God fulfilled all the good promises, the curses of the covenant will also certainly happen if they reject God. And that brings us to this difficult idea of the wrath of the Lord.
It's a necessary topic, even if it's uncomfortable, because for many people, the whole concept of God's anger seems to clash directly with that core belief that God is love.
Right. People often imagine divine wrath as, I don't know, volatile, maybe vindictive, like God losing his temper.
That's a common misconception, and the sources are very clear. That's not what biblical wrath is about. It's not some emotional, unpredictable outburst.
So what is it?
It's defined as the necessary, settled response of God's perfect holiness and righteousness when it confronts persistent, willful sin and evil. It's more of a judicial reaction to moral chaos and broken trust.
Okay, so justice, not just fury. And it applies universally.
Absolutely. The warnings, the potential for destruction outlined in the covenant curses back in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, they applied just as much to Israel as they did to the Canaanites they displaced.
No special treatment just because they were Israel.
None. It shows Yahweh is the judge of the whole earth. He opposes sin wherever it's found. His justice is impartial.
And the sources mention something else important here. God's patience, his forbearance, it isn't infinite.
Right. Forbearance is his amazing patience, his willingness to give time for people to turn back.
Right.
But there's a point, a boundary, where persistent resistance to his spirit, continually ignoring his ways, means people essentially cross their line of probation.
And then judgment becomes the only option left.
It seems so. And crucially, the sources sometimes frame these judgments, paradoxically, as a kind of mercy.
Mercy, how so?
The severe mercy, perhaps? A necessary, painful wake-up call designed to show people the true deadliness of their path and hopefully prevent utter self-destruction.
Okay, that's a challenging perspective. So if the warnings, the curses are the sticks and the blessings are the carrots, Avoiding the sticks isn't just about focusing on the don'ts, is it? We said that earlier.
No, definitely not. Just trying not to mess up isn't enough to maintain that constant spiritual connection.
So what's the positive action? What's the fundamental active choice Joshua calls for?
It's the ultimate requirement he lays out. Cultivate conscious and consistent allegiance. The only real way to steer clear of temptation and God's righteous opposition to sin isn't just rule following, it's actively cleaving to the Lord, adhering to him.
That word cleave or adhere, it sounds really strong, like something sticky, total commitment.
It is. It's one of the most powerful covenant terms in the Old Testament. It's the same word used for the deep loyalty in marriage, a man leaving his parents and cleaving to his wife.
Genesis 2.
And think of Ruth cleaving to Naomi. It means total, intentional, loyal attachment. Deuteronomy 4 uses it too. You have to choose deliberately to stick close to God.
And Joshua pairs this need to cleave with an explicit command: love the Lord their God. Now, how can love be commanded? Isn't love supposed to be, spontaneous, an emotion?
That's a really insightful question. In this covenant context, love for God is understood primarily as a conscious commitment, a chosen devotion,
So less about forcing a feeling.
and more about choosing loyalty, choosing obedience, deciding to align your will with his. And crucially, this springs from a real relationship, from appreciating the mercy God just showed them in the conquest. It's a decision to actively maintain that relationship.
Okay, that makes sense. It's an active commitment. And this commitment, this deliberate loyalty, it shouldn't be gloomy, right?
Right.
The sources mentioned avoiding sadness and gloom.
Absolutely. If our faith just looks like drudgery or sadness, we're actually misrepresenting God's character. We make it seem like serving him is a burden.
Which isn't very attractive.
Not at all. Our allegiance should show up in the joy of serving him. Remember how Christ pointed to everyday things, birds, lilies, to keep our minds focused on God's care and the spiritual realities rather than getting bogged down in anxiety.
That brings us to a really wonderful story. The sources include illustrating this kind of attractive service leading with love and commitment. It's about a missionary, Kim's son, in the Philippines.
Yes, it's such a perfect example of this intentional allegiance in action. When Sun first went to this remote town, he knew he couldn't just start preaching doctrine or condemnation. That wouldn't work.
So what did he do?
For 3 whole months, he just served the people, free of charge, fixing things, helping out, focusing completely on building friendships and showing God's love in practical ways.
Just meeting needs, no strings attached.
Exactly. And the people accepted his help, his friendship. But eventually, after that foundation of trust was built, they became curious. They came to him and asked, "Look, if you're a missionary, why aren't you telling us about the Bible?"
Ah, so they initiated the spiritual conversation.
Precisely. And because he'd already established that genuine friendship, that cleaving relationship in a sense, he was then able to frame every biblical truth. Creation, the cross, Jesus' teachings, he framed it all as an expression of God's love for you.
He led with love, demonstrated the cleaving, before asking for their commitment.
That's the heart of the allegiance Joshua is calling for. It starts with appreciating God's love and commitment to us.
Wow. That really brings it all together. Looking back at Joshua's final words, the big takeaway seems to be this: God's faithfulness is absolutely certain. We can bank on it. The evidence is there. He keeps his promises.
Completely reliable.
But that guarantee demands something from us, a continuous active choice to love him, to cleave to him, and to maintain those clear spiritual boundaries he sets up for our good.
Well said. It really boils down to that ongoing submission and commitment from our side, doesn't it?
It does. And as you, our listener, think about Joshua's message on allegiance and God's refining work, here's a final thought from the sources to maybe chew on.
Faith is often refined like gold in a fire. And the refiner, it says, only takes the gold out when he sees his own image perfectly reflected in it.
So the provocative question is, what obstacles in your own life, maybe things like murmuring or doubt, or even just failing to speak words of faith, what might be preventing you from fully submitting to the unique refining process God has chosen for you?
And therefore, perhaps delaying the clearer reflection of his image in your life. Something to consider.